Hello, I'm Caitlin Brown, CREST Product Manager at the British Science Association, and thank you for joining another one of our CREST webinars. Today we're going to be discussing a brand new resource that we have, which maps the CREST primary resources for STAR and Superstar to the different curricula across the UK. And I'm joined today by Naomi, who is a primary science specialist and also one of our regional CREST support organisations who covers the region of London. So thanks for joining us today, Naomi.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. So yes, my name's Naomi Hiscock, and I started out as a primary school teacher in Tower Hamlets in an inner city London school, where I was both science and maths subject leader. Then later on, I moved on to work for the local authority in Hackney. And then later on, I set up my own education consultancy company, Primary Science Education Consultancy, about 10 years ago. And our aim is to support teachers across London and beyond with teaching in assessment of science. I've also been chair of the Association for Science Education Primary Committee and currently lead the plan team who are developing resources to support teachers with planning and assessment of science. So that's me. Thank you.
So Naomi, you're obviously very experienced with CREST. So do you want to just outline kind of your general kind of history with CREST and how you've used it before in the past?
Yes, thank you. So I first came across the CREST when I was working between school and the local authority. I worked for my local set point, delivering workshops for science and technology. And one of their roles was to deliver the CREST programme for the BSA. So that's when I first came across the resources, and particularly the primary resources. I was really frustrated because they would have been perfect when I was running a science club in my school and I just wasn't aware of them. So then I did actually get to use them when my children were at primary school and I was a governor at their school, and I used the CREST resources then to support running a science club for their year 2 children. And they were absolutely perfect at that point because they were easy for me to just pick up and use and didn't involve a lot of resources, so the school could provide the resources or I could find them from home. More recently, I've been supporting schools to use them in a number of different ways. I supported a number of schools with the Polar Explorer programme that STEM Learning funded a while back, and most of those schools were running polar themed weeks, and there were a number of activities that fitted in really nicely with that. So the children worked on those during the themed week and gained their CREST award through that. Currently, I work with a lot of schools doing primary science quality mark, and one of the things that they have to show is how they're enriching their curriculums, and a really obvious way to do that is to run a science club, and therefore I'm often promoting and showing the teachers the CREST resources for that. And then also, I think the other time that I talk to teachers about the CREST Awards are when they're trying to introduce more scientific inquiry into their lessons. A lot of teachers feel a little unconfident about the approach of leaving children freer to explore and answer their own questions for themselves. And I find that the CREST resources are really useful for helping teachers take that first step into child-led learning. So I've used it in a lot of different ways with a lot of different people.
So just as an overview of the kind of structure of CREST Star and Superstar, these are our primary levels for ages 5 to 11, and the way that they work is a teacher or any adult really will run 8 one-hour activities with the student, and these will be their own activities. You can follow a theme, but you don't have to. They can be completely independent activities. And essentially, once you've done 8 of these, you can then reward your students with a certificate and an iron-on badge, and they will have completed their CREST Star or Superstar award.
I think it's also great because they don't have to be done within a certain time scale. So actually, you could just do one activity every few weeks to fit with the topics that you've got. And then by the end of the year, they could complete their CREST award.
So Naomi, what would you say the kind of key benefits are to using CREST, Star and Superstar to actually teach the curriculum?
So I think firstly, I mean, the advantage of the resources are that they are so easy to use. There's a really clear teacher's guide, which gives really clearly what resources you would need. It's got step-by-step instructions, and also it's got key questions that can be used to ensure the children are heading in the right direction, but also to support with assessment. As I said earlier, the resources that you need to run the activities are quite basic and quite minimal. A lot of the resources will be in the classroom, so the children can find them from themselves. And I think particularly at the moment where we're under lots of restrictions, it makes it easy to work within the bubbles. Each activity is presented as a sort of story-based scenario, which gives the children a problem to solve, but in a familiar context, which is really good as far as developing the children's science capital, because they can see that science is in the world around them. The activities are quite simple for the children to grasp what the problem is that they need to solve, and just by providing a range of resources they can choose how to solve that problem for themselves, which means they become much more child-led activities and they're becoming to be more independent. And that independence really helps the children and gives the opportunity for them to develop their science skills. And I think also because they're working in groups, they're also developing those thinking and communication skills whilst they're working together. And I think the last thing I'd say is that there is an expectation as part of the process of completing an activity. They do present their findings to other people. And so that's a really nice way of them developing and practicing their presentation skills, and also is an opportunity for the children to learn from each other.
I completely agree, Naomi. And I think the beauty of CREST and Superstar is actually kind of their flexibility and the fact that you can adapt them for lots of different circumstances. So, for example, doing them within your bubble at the moment, and also not having to share lots of different resources and things that you're then going to have to sterilise. So I thought would be really helpful today in this webinar is to go through an activity that we've actually included in this curriculum mapping resource and outline how this could be used in class time to kind of make curriculum links and use it to teach the curriculum. So the resource that we're going to look at today is called Animal Adventure. It's from our STAR collection, and it actually maps to all 4 UK curricula, so it's a good one to kind of look at. And in this resource, the teacher essentially introduces their pupils to the concept of mini beasts and habitats, and then children go on an animal adventure to discover creatures living near them and kind of look at their different habitats. So Naomi, I think what would be helpful is if you could kind of outline how this resource could be used to actually link to the curriculum.
Okay, so I'm only going to talk about the curriculum in England because that's the one that I'm most familiar with. But in year 2 and year 4, there's an expectation that the children name and identify mini beasts. So this activity is absolutely perfect. So they can go out into their playground, the local park, and see what they can find and use various resources to name and identify them. I would say that that activity can be repeated or should be repeated throughout the year, so they can actually see how the habitat changes with the weather and with the seasons. It's also quite useful. The children in year 5 will be learning about the life cycle of different animals. And so again, it's a perfect way to start a topic, go out, have a look at what they can find. Hopefully they can remember and still name the animals that they've been finding in year 2 and year 4. And then when they've had that nice experience, they can then go on and find out about the life cycle of those animals that they've actually found, making it far more engaging and meaningful for them. Likewise, in year 6, the children will be learning about how animals are classified. And again, why not be classifying the animals that they've found in the local area? So again, starting the topic by going out, finding the range of mini beasts, again, checking that they can still name and identify them. And then later on, they can start to think about how they can be classified in different ways. So all those aspects of the curriculum can be taught leading on from that first-hand experience using that CREST resource.
And actually, the mapping resource can be used in a couple of ways, which I think, again, makes that in itself quite flexible. So, for example, you might have a specific resource that you found in the CREST Star or Superstar packs, and you might be wondering, how can I use this in my curriculum teaching? So in that case, you can kind of go to the mapping resource and see if the activity has been included as one that links to the curriculum, which a lot of them do link really well. And then you can essentially figure out how you will use that in your curriculum teaching. Alternatively, you might be looking at a specific area of the curriculum and think, can I use a CREST resource to actually teach this? So, for example, if you're teaching the Welsh curriculum, you might want to tackle forces and energy, and then you can simply open the resource, use the contents to see what page we talk about the Welsh curriculum, and then see which resources cover this topic. And plus, because of the kind of the breadth and the kind of flexibility of CREST Star and Superstar, you can pick any number of different topics that you'd want to cover. And then you can also just use additional activities to kind of fill up the rest of the 8 activities that you need for CREST Star and Superstar, and you can either use this as part of your curriculum teaching or alternatively do this as a kind of an additional thing. So Naomi, do you have any final thoughts about the resource and how it can be used to support curriculum teaching? And do you have any tips for any maybe less confident teachers who might be a bit nervous about doing this for the first time?
Okay, so the resources, as I said earlier, are really easy to use, but I would always suggest with any activity, whether it's CREST or other activities, it's always a really good idea to try the activity out yourself first, so that you're comfortable with the activity, and you can also guide the children through where they may go wrong, and you can be there to watch out for little mistakes and support them getting back on track again. I think the other thing to think about is that these open-ended inquiry-based activities are really good, but they do then children will often generate lots of questions as they're working through their problems. And I think it's really important to remember that you don't have to answer all the questions. If a child asks a question and then goes on to find the answer for themselves, they're far more likely to remember it than if you just give them the answer straight away. And so it's a really great opportunity to actually take those questions and go on an adventure together, to have a go and actually see if you can answer the questions with them rather than just directly answering the questions for them. And it's okay if things go wrong. We all make mistakes. Children make mistakes. Teachers make mistakes. Adults make mistakes. Scientists make mistakes. And I think it's really good to show the children that it's okay to make mistakes. We learn from them and we can move forward. I think it is important, and the resources do have safety and health and safety guidance in them. So that's there to support. You should be following the health and safety guidance, and also at the moment in particular, but generally you should be checking with CLEAPS to find out any additional guidance, particularly around COVID-19 at the moment. But I think what's really important is that the resources, as Caitlin was saying earlier, are flexible and you can adapt them to suit your pupils. So you may have different children approaching them in slightly different ways with different resources. And I think the other thing is that you can make up your own activities as well, particularly once teachers have got familiar with the style and the approach. It's really quite easy to think about, well, actually, I've got this activity. How can I present it using that style of CREST? So I think really they are very supportive materials, particularly for teachers that want to develop more scientific inquiry and need to take those first few steps to let their children take responsibility and have the independence.
So that's kind of everything that we wanted to cover today about this new resource. Thank you so much, Naomi, for joining us. Your insights have been very, very helpful. And you're always a brilliant advocate for CREST, so thanks for joining. Feel free to add any questions in the comments and we'll be happy to answer them. If you have any questions, please email us. We'll put the email on screen, and it's crest@britishscienceassociation.org. And we'll also put the link to the resource itself in the description below. So yeah, please do ask us any questions if you have them and check out the new resource. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
you.